helping to raise awareness for NHS speech and language therapists who are providing crucial support to coronavirus patients in intensive care.
And he joins us from his home in Northamptonshire, and also joining us is a consultant speech and language therapist, Dr. Jackie McRae, who is currently seconded to the Nightingale Hospital in London, helping COVID patients coming out of intensive care. You're doing some critical work, Jackie McRae, and it's very good to see you both this morning. Just tell us the importance of this work. I just hadn't realised what you're doing with the COVID patients, particularly those who have been intubated, they've been on a ventilator, and how the speech and language therapy is helping them not just speak afterwards, but breathe, eat, essential functions for life.
Yes, that's right. I think we probably haven't promoted our skills, but I've worked in critical care for all of my career, which is over 25 years. We understand the functions of the throat and the mouth and the tongue, the lips, and unfortunately these patients are requiring tubes to help them breathe. And so in the early stages, we're helping to make sure their mouths are kept moist so that when they have the tube removed, those are all working well. And of course, as you can imagine, those breathing tubes do sit on the tongue and in the airway in the voice box. And so when they get taken out, there is inevitably some bruising and damage. Hopefully it's temporary most of the time, but again, these people can be experiencing problems for quite a while. And as you say, eating, drinking, talking, those are the things that are so important to us in life.
And Nick, amongst all the things that we were aware of with coronavirus and concerning ourselves with, I don't think many people will have thought that actually this would be a hugely important factor in the recovery of a lot of these patients. So the work that's being done is incredibly important, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think that I spoke to Jackie, I've spoken to other speech therapists, so when those patients come out of the ICU, the ventilator is removed, the fear, the disorientation, so often they're delirious because of the drugs they've been taking, they're hallucinating, they can't communicate, and that's when the speech and language therapists come in, they communicate, and they bring them back, they give them their voice back, and that's what speech and language therapists do from the smallest child that's born perhaps with a soft palate, right up through stroke victims who can't speak, right up to elderly people in care homes who have to be retaught how to swallow. So they do a tremendous job right through the ages of men and women rather.
It's utterly remarkable. Jackie McRae, I mean, when you're dealing with COVID patients, presumably you have to be masked, gowned, perhaps even wear a visor. I just wonder, when you're dealing with speech, movement of the mouth, communicating with patients, does all of that equipment provide you, as well as safety, but some obstacles to communication?
Absolutely, yes, and as we know, the virus actually comes from our mouth and our nose, so we do require the full PPE, which includes masks and visors. It does disrupt communication. Patients can't see our mouths, and I think when they come out of ITU, they are disorientated and confused. We try and use sign language, but we also have a range of communication charts that we've developed and used so that patients can try and point to things that they want. But often they're wanting to communicate very basic things, maybe contacting their families or having something to drink, or even going to the toilet. All these are essential functions.
And of course, you mention, of course, because families can't be in there. So often you're a substitute family for a number of these patients. If a patient has just come out and is finding it hard to communicate, but the first thing they want to do is speak on the phone or via FaceTime with a family member, must be so frustrating for them.
Yeah, and we have been utilising technology. Thank goodness that we have the technology. And also there are cases that we can bring families in and we put them in PPE as well so that they can visit their families. It is so important to make those connections again, really important for the recovery and the rehabilitation of these patients. So we do whatever we can in order to help our patients.
Well, you're doing an extraordinary job, as Nick will agree. Nick, I wonder how things have been for you in lockdown. I know that you suspended, or a countdown was suspended for a bit, but you do have a start date back. How have you been finding it all?
Well, I'm sort of guilty in the sense that I'm very comfortable in lockdown. I'm not bored. We have room inside and outside. We're much more fortunate than many. Countdown, nothing will stop Countdown. It's been running since 1982. The final programme that was sort of in the can went out on Friday. We're now running the 30th anniversary competition, and hopefully we'll be back in June. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
You're over 70, I hope you won't mind me mentioning that, but of course, which we are constantly told is a very serious position to be in with regards to COVID-19. Have you been nervous, Nick, about going out and about and mixing in public spaces?
Well, I'm 76. We haven't left the property, really. I am slightly anxious about it, but, you know, the over 70s have sort of seen it all, and we are responsible people. And I think that when the lockdown eases, you can trust those over 70 to be responsible, not least because they know of their vulnerability. So I shall go back happily to the studio, but very cautiously. And I'll keep my distance, as it were. But nothing will count down.
Quite right. And as you look ahead to the easing of the lockdown, there's a row at the moment about whether business is going to be safe enough to reopen. The trade unions want guarantees about equipment, PPE, safety measures. How important is it to you and to the economy that business gets up and running, but obviously at the same time balances the risks that everyone face when more people are out there?
Frankly, it's a terrible sort of dilemma, really, because the economy, excuse me, the economy's got to get back on its feet. The absolute wholesale sort of slaughter of business is terrifying, and we've got to get it back. You know, people without jobs, people, you know, wondering whether they're going to be able to get back. All this is absolutely crucial, but by the same token also, you know, we've got to avoid having a second wave of coronavirus. The NHS has behaved fantastically. They have delivered so wonderfully, and we've got to preserve and make sure that there's always room in the NHS for any other poor people that are infected with COVID-19. So it's, to be honest with you, government has got a nightmare of a decision to make, and we've got to support them. They were slow off the mark. I know they were very slow off the mark, but now everything seems to be coming together, and we've got to support them. I think Rishi Sunak, of all of the ministers, has been extraordinary. Now, there's a Prime Minister in the making, if there ever was one. I think he's exceptional. And what he has done has been a remarkable, fast, and very, I think, effective series of measures.
And Nick, what are you most missing in lockdown? As you say, you're lucky, you know, we can see you've got a lot of space. I'm sure, you know, you've got some outside space as well. But what are the things, you know, as you look forward to the easing, other than getting back into the Countdown studio, which is safe distance, obviously, from your co-hosts and colleagues, what are you most looking forward to?
I think, you know, getting back into society, meeting one's friends again, and I know that my partner Catherine's got a granddaughter that she hasn't seen. We've been locked up 7 weeks. She's desperate to see her, and I think that grandparents across the country watching your programme will nod in agreement that one of the most difficult things is not to be able to pick up your 3-year-old granddaughter, Sophia in this case, and give her a hug. And as soon as that is relaxed, the happier all those grandparents will be.
Well, we know that we're following in the footsteps. Sadly, we have been following tragically in the footsteps of Italy. But as they ease their lockdown and start to get a grip on the virus, we've seen those pictures of grandparents doing exactly what you described, Nick, hugging their grandchildren. And hopefully that is on the horizon. I know that my parents would love a hug with their grandchildren. As everybody, that's what everybody wants to see. Nick Hewer, lovely to see you. Thank you very much indeed. And Dr. Jackie McRae, you're doing sterling work. You're at the Nightingale. Of course, we know that there's going to be changes at the Nightingale, aren't there?
Well, we've still got work to do, so if we have patients, we'll be working here, and if not here, then somewhere else in the NHS.
Such vital work, and thank you for sharing that with us.
I just think, as Nick is reassuring us that countdown nothing will stop countdown. Let's hope that this music will start signalling the end of lockdown for us. There it is. We can use your countdown music, Nick, to ease us out of lockdown as well. Wouldn't that be great? Lovely to see you both. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Nick Hewer and Jackie McRae, who is a language and speech therapist and consultant who's working at the Nightingale Hospital, helping all those people who have been struggling with COVID-19 to get well and be able to talk.